So we consider the civil service to be apolitical. They go through their checklist and they come up and say, these companies don't give these companies good candidates to give the skills development grant. So of the companies that the civil servants said don't give, $750 million was given out. To understand how much is $750 million, that's the city of Mississauga's budget. So that was the scale of money given to organizations that shouldn't have received it. But how did we learn about it? Because the province has an auditor general. Similarly, some moons ago, we may remember there was this big scandal around the Greenbelt. How did we find out about it? It was the provincial auditor general. Similarly, there was a lot of talk about how the federal government, the CRA isn't working well, which is the Canada Revenue Agency, the call center, right? How did we find out about it? Because the federal government has an auditor general. And last year, there was a story about how at the city of Toronto, City of Toronto employees were logging in saying that they were at work at the parks, but were actually sitting in coffee shops, right, and having coffee, but making it look like they were working. How did we find out about it? The Auditor General. So the Auditor General is the taxpayer's best friend because their job is to give a second set of eyes to how any government is spending money. And so we have an Auditor General at the federal government level, we have one at the provincial level, and we have one at the City of Toronto. But the region of Peel, which is probably the next largest level of government after Ottawa and Toronto in terms of municipal governments, has no Auditor General. And we are spending billions of dollars every year. But there's nobody saying, hey, is this the best use of money? And so this past summer, I brought a motion forward that said it's time for the region of Peel to have an Auditor General. I think this is powerful. The region of Peel, as I said, is probably the third largest municipal government in Ontario, which means it's a very big government. And I'm very excited that we're going to have an Auditor General. I'm happy to talk about what an Auditor General can and cannot do, but if you had any follow-up questions on this.
Yeah, I would, just for clarification, you said you're happy we are going to have an Auditor General. It means that passed and we are going to have an Auditor General, or is it still a decision process now?
So the motion was passed and we are now in the process of hiring one. So hopefully sometime next
year. Congratulations. I didn't know that. Wow, we have some breaking news here.
Thank you, Robin. But the frustrating thing is, even though the motion passed last summer, very few people know about it. But it is such an important.
Yeah, I didn't know about it until I talked to you. I didn't know about it.
Yes. And because it's not that something, I guess, Mississauga, for example, doesn't have much. It does have some media, doesn't have a lot of local media. So it's not like the Toronto Star is reporting on what's happening in Mississauga. So yeah, it's a shame, but I think this is very good. If you're a property taxpayer in Mississauga, this is good news.
So on the Auditor General, I just have one more follow-up question on that topic. You mentioned, the Auditor General should be considered the best friend of the taxpayer. I want to ask you the flip side of that coin. Would the Auditor General in this case be assumably not so good friend of the city staff?
So, and that's a very good question. And it all depends on one's attitude. And certainly, there could be a sense that this is the auditor, right? But I think cities, whether it's city staff, the vast majority of city staff want to do the right thing. So I would say that the Auditor General is their best friend too, because what the Auditor General is doing is saying, you've been doing this thing for the last 30 years the same way. Is there a way to do this in a better way? Or if 0.001% of people commit fraud, everybody else is honest, the Auditor General will find that fraud, right? So they'll find the bad apple. So actually, the Auditor General is the best friend of not only the taxpayer, but also, I think, of management and council.
Absolutely. It's a balanced approach, I'm assuming, in this case.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be adversarial unless you have something to hide. As long as it's just, right. The Auditor General might say, this is not good value for money. right? For example, when you look at that example in Toronto, where these park staff were logging in that they were working in the parks but are actually sitting at Tim Hortons, even the management doesn't know because, in the IT system, it's all logged in. So this is good for management to know as well. So I think it's good all around.